The fact that Bangladesh was colonized for more than 200 plus years, we forget the fact that it had an effect. Now, this talk of mine is not about stabbing the West. It is more about exploring ourselves, our own vulnerabilities, and how we can come out of it. Sometimes, if you don't really know the root of your problem and of your struggle, it's very hard to come out of it. And that is where I position my talk into. So I'll start off by talking the story of a psychiatrist named Francis Fanon. He was originally from Caribbeans and he was under the French colonization. He later on became a French psychiatrist. And in 1952, he published his PhD thesis, and his PhD thesis was, in summary, a book, and the book titled Black Skin, White Mask. And in my talk, I wanted to have my title go like Brown Skin, White Mask. The entire discussion of his PhD thesis was about when French colonized a large part of Africa and his own region, it had a lasting effect even when the French went out. When we say culture, culture is nothing but the community's identity. When you insult and humiliate the identity for generations, then the people who are born in that humiliation always believes that they are less and the master is the best. So they are in this paradox. In one dimension, they hate the master. On another dimension, they hate themselves for not being the master. Now the Bangladeshi version of it is, in 70s, 1700, Dhaka was one of the richest, prosperous city. That's why the British came here. For 200 years, they took everything and gave us a cup of tea. We were very upright, gentle people. But what happened to us now? We are this dirty little country. We are this country with still so much scarcity, and it's always like we have to game up to their level. And it is psychologically ingrained in us. What we need to realize is what Francis Fanon explained for such a long period of time is that generational trauma affects how you dream, how you aspire. Because subconsciously you feel that you are limited for no good reason, and you feel that you need to be more like them to get the approval, the invisible approval that will make you worth it, lovable, acceptable. So what happens, coming back to that father who's emotionally unavailable? What has that to do with this entire discussion? Think about it. If your grandparent is alive, ask them about their childhood. You will hear a story of scarcity. And when you are in slums or in such condition, 100 years back, all you are thinking about food. You are not thinking about emotional availability. You are thinking about the next meal. So when an entire generation was coming up with the scarcity of whether I'll have the next meal or no, with zero social security, with no rights at all, then for them, being emotionally available to their children is a luxury. That's why so many Bangladeshi fathers and mothers think that our generation is snowflakes. We are too soft. Why do we crave so much? Why do we crave so much attention? Because they came out of a certain level of scarcity and they never unlearned it. And that trauma is intergenerational. So there is a term called intergenerational trauma. So because you had an emotionally unavailable father, sometimes you become an emotionally unavailable husband. You become an emotionally unavailable wife because you don't see the point of it. I'm paying the bills, na? I'm paying the tuition, na? You haven't seen the tough life, they say. Actually, we didn't. But the fact is that tough life doesn't justify today's emotional unavailability. But what he or she is trying to make you understand is I have seen scarcity. And what he is not able to explain you is that I haven't been able to come out of that generational trauma. He hasn't healed. And me and you are always thinking about West is the best and I am inferior, or sometimes we are becoming so quickly happy with doing so little, it is purely because we are afraid to dream and afraid to aspire. We have a scarcity mindset. We need to get the next job. Even if my dad or your dad has 100 crores, even he has millions, we cannot stop thinking about the next job. Why? Because we are always afraid of scarcity. Even if the scarcity doesn't exist, it exists within us. And it's not a surprise that it happened, it is an effect of post-colonization. So what we will do now, we'll always blame the West and be mediocre? No. It's the random boy who's walking in London now is completely innocent of what happened 70 years back by whoever. But the boy who's walking in Dhaka streets, or a student of North-South University or Dhaka University, need to understand that there is a scar that he needs to be aware about. When he is thinking limited, when he is not getting any inspiration, when he is seeing that his parents are emotionally unavailable, do you know that in Bangladesh, everyone talks about depression? So me being a psychologist, let me tell you something. In Bangladesh, anxiety among students and corporates is way higher than depression. All the studies that we did in our clinical observation, in corporates, in universities, all of them show that in our universities, in our corporates, anxiety disorders are more common than major depressive disorder. In somebody which is more than depression. Where does anxiety come from? Anxiety, definitely people can be anxious because of their environment, because of post-traumatic stress disorder, but at the same time, it can be genetic. A large number of people who have anxiety disorder, it stems from their genetics. And where did that come from? Intergenerational trauma. So you need to understand, our schools, our universities, our families need to understand that there needs an extra layer of cushion, extra layer of psychological support, that if we don't provide our people, then our people will always believe that we are not good enough. We shouldn't be so big. We will always feel inferior. A university professor in Mason University, a wonderful guy of history, I met him in 2018 in a trip. And I was talking with him, and we were talking on this topic, and he said something very powerful. And he said, most of the brown-skinned people think that we are bossing on them without us doing anything because of their generational trauma. They think, so what he is saying in his experience is that because of generational trauma, brown people feel inferior in front of a white people for no good reason. He is saying that why do you need to come out of it. If you really want to do good, you need to get out of this skin color business. And this skin color business is not always, this entire superiority, inferiority complex doesn't always come from them. It comes from our own insecurity. Now think about it. It's very interesting. So the white girls are like, why don't they ever approach us? And the brown man is like, dude, you think that girl will be your... Forget about it. Go back home. Look for your cousin.